Has Netanyahu been left holding the bag as U.S.-Iran talks gather momentum and move closer to a breakthrough? An arm-twisted Bibi now appears to be facing the prospect of abandoning all four of his key anti-Iran objectives. For major demands aimed at curbing Iran now seem increasingly out of reach as Trump prioritizes engagement with Mojtaba's camp. Netanyahu's four-point Iran strategy appears to be going up in smoke after the controversial 60-day Hormuz discount arrangement. Is this the moment Netanyahu effectively lost the Iran endgame after years of pressure, threats, and military escalation? The Iran-US Memorandum of Understanding appears to have dealt a significant political setback to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Israeli premier had reportedly outlined four core objectives before Washington and Tehran moved toward concluding negotiations. However, with Trump preparing to formalize a memorandum of understanding with Iran, Netanyahu may now be compelled to abandon several wartime demands. Despite this, Israel has repeatedly emphasized that it does not consider itself bound by conditions negotiated between Washington and Tehran. Israel's first objective was the complete removal of Iran's existing stockpile of enriched uranium from the country. Netanyahu also sought the dismantling of Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities and the broader infrastructure supporting them. Another key demand was the imposition of tough limitations on Tehran's ballistic missile development and deployment capabilities. Israel further insisted that Iran must halt all military, financial, and political support for its regional proxy groups. Despite Trump's earlier pledge to deal with Iran's uranium stockpile, Netanyahu may struggle to secure that objective. Iran currently possesses more than 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, reportedly stored at underground facilities. However, the latest U.S.-Iran memorandum reportedly contains no requirement for transferring or removing that enriched material. Regarding nuclear infrastructure, Washington has reportedly accepted Tehran's right to continue limited enrichment activities. In an interview with the New York Times, Trump acknowledged Iran could enrich uranium at restricted low levels. Iran's ballistic missile arsenal also remains intact, falling short of Israel's long-standing expectations. Tehran has consistently rejected demands from either Israel or Washington to curb its missile program. Additionally, American negotiators reportedly did not require Iran to sever support for allied regional groups. A senior political analyst has alleged that Israel has derailed U.S.-Iran deal efforts at least 5 times, blocking understandings that were close to conclusion. Ahmad Abshinaz claimed that Washington and Tehran came close to agreements on 3 separate occasions under President Biden, only for those efforts to be disrupted. He also argued that 2 additional breakthroughs were nearly reached under the Trump administration, but those 2 failed to materialize amid Israeli resistance. According to Abshinaz, Iran now insists that a Lebanon ceasefire be formally included in any future U.S.-Iran deal, tying the Northern Front directly to nuclear and sanctions talks. He contended that Israel has deliberately kept the Lebanese front active in order to complicate diplomacy, using ongoing clashes to narrow the room for negotiation. Abshinaz further claimed that Israel continues military pressure even though Lebanon has accepted key ceasefire demands, suggesting that the objective is to maintain leverage, not end the fighting. The analyst added that Tehran is unlikely to abandon allies such as Lebanon during negotiations, meaning Iran will keep their interests on the table in any talks with Washington. In his view, any future deal may hinge on whether the U.S. can genuinely balance between Israel and Iran, rather than allowing one partner to repeatedly veto emerging agreements. Israel told Trump it does not consider itself bound by the Lebanon-related clause included in the agreement, yet reported. Israeli officials said the Prime Minister made clear that Tel Aviv would not back down in its campaign against Hezbollah. Netanyahu also told Trump that Israel would not withdraw from its current military positions inside Lebanon. Israel said the IDF would continue striking Hezbollah targets and destroying infrastructure it considers threatening. Officials said Netanyahu received the full backing of Israel's security cabinet regarding the Lebanon issue. Senior Israeli officials said they expect possible pressure from Washington following the U.S.-Iran agreement. Officials warned the U.S. could seek Israeli withdrawals or push for limits on future military operations in Lebanon. Trump told the New York Times that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is a very difficult guy to deal with. The U.S. president also suggested Netanyahu should show greater appreciation for long-standing American support, according to the NYT. The remarks came as Israeli officials voiced deep concerns about the contents and implications of the agreement. Israeli officials noted that Israel was not directly involved in the negotiations that ultimately produced the latest deal. Amid the growing rift, Iran's foreign ministry condemned an Israeli strike on Beirut's southern suburbs. Tehran said the attack violated Lebanon's sovereignty and breached the ceasefire understanding reached in April. Iran also accused the United States of bearing responsibility for Israel's actions and continued military operations. The foreign ministry said Tehran retains the right to take all necessary self-defense measures under international law. Another startling report has now revealed how Israel allegedly attempted to undermine a potential U.S. Iran agreement. Israel is openly defying Trump's agreement with Iran and has vowed to continue military operations across Lebanon. Israeli forces are reportedly set to maintain ground raids in southern Lebanon despite growing international pressure. Lebanese media outlets reported 2 Israeli airstrikes just hours after the U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding was announced. According to reports, Mojtaba was targeted while a separate drone strike hit areas around Kfar Tebnit. Heavy bombardment was also reported in Nabati, Kfar Reman, and several other towns across southern Lebanon. In southern Lebanon, the Israel Defense Forces reportedly rained down missiles and drone strikes on multiple locations. Lebanese authorities have reportedly urged residents to avoid returning to their villages amid the deteriorating security situation. Ahead of the agreement, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz delivered a message of defiance that appeared aimed at Trump. Katz declared that Israel would not withdraw from territories seized during its operations in Lebanon. The Israeli minister also vowed retaliation if Iran responds to Israel's continuing offensive activities in Lebanon. Katz was responding to Trump's public criticism of Israel over its ongoing strikes inside Lebanese territory. The Israel defense minister said, and I quote, "Israel will not withdraw from the security zones in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza. The IDF will continue to defend our borders and our citizens. From the peak of Mount Hermon, the mountains of Lebanon, the areas of our land in the Samaria region, and most of the territory of Gaza. Against the threats posed by jihadist forces and organizations, as a central lesson from the events of October 7th. The IDF will not withdraw from the terrorist camps in northern Samaria, which have been evacuated of residents. And if necessary, the operation will be expanded to additional terrorist camps. Our security doctrine is sharp and clear. We act against both near and distant threats and strive for decisive outcomes rather than compromises and concessions. Much is at stake in this period, and we are determined to continue leading a firm security policy that will prevent harm to our security. Achievements and will not endanger our ability to fight against the Shiite axis of evil led by Iran and the Sunni axis of evil led by the Muslim Brotherhood." End quote. While that was unfolding, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich claimed the U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding was bad for Israel and the entire free world. Smotrich said, and I quote, "The agreement with Iran is bad for Israel and for the entire free world. Period. The joint campaign had many achievements in weakening Iran, and they will not go to waste. We will have to continue the campaign to topple the regime ourselves and in creative ways, and ensure that Iran will never have nuclear weapons. None of the candidates who see themselves as fit for the premiership would withstand even 10% of the pressure currently being applied to the Israeli government, and especially to the one at its head. In Lebanon, we will be tested. This is our war, our fighters, and the immediate security of our northern residents. I will continue to act so that we continue to stand firm on ours and allow the IDF full freedom of action to continue pushing Hezbollah away." End quote. Iran state-affiliated Mehr News has published what it says is a 14-point draft agreement outlining a potential framework for a U.S.-Iran deal. According to Mehr, the reported draft begins with an immediate and permanent end to military operations across multiple fronts in the region. The United States would pledge not to interfere in Iran's internal affairs under the reported framework. Washington would formally recognize and respect the sovereignty of the Islamic Republic. The U.S. would lift its maritime blockade measures within 30 days of the agreement taking effect. American forces deployed around Iran's periphery would be withdrawn as part of the proposed arrangement. The Strait of Hormuz would reopen under security and transit arrangements coordinated by Iran. The draft also reportedly includes the release of $24 billion in frozen Iranian funds. These assets would be unlocked during a 60-day negotiation and implementation period. Half of the funds would reportedly become available to Tehran before formal talks begin. The reported concessions would represent a major economic lifeline for sanctions-hit Iran if implemented. The leak surfaced shortly after Donald Trump announced on June 14 that a U.S. Iran agreement had been completed.